Welcome to the HMO Property Show, by investors for investors. Brought to you by the HMO Property Co, Australia's leaders in impact investing. Investments made with the intention to generate a measurable, beneficial social or environmental impact alongside a positive financial return. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the HMO Property Show. My name is Kim Barrett, and today for the 50th episode, I've hijacked the booth. I've taken over. So today's guests, we are joined by Miss Neil and Jo Gibb. Guys, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us, Kim.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
It feels a little bit bizarre being on the opposite end of my own podcast, but yeah.
It's fun. We're here to have some fun with it. So yeah, today, obviously, the goal is to share a little bit about your guys' background, what's happened and what got you guys to the point where you are now. So I have to ask the question, first of all, if someone met you now, and we'll go back and look at the history as well, but if someone meets you guys now and you're out and about, what is it that you say that you guys do? Because it's pretty multifaceted.
I struggle with this one.
Yeah.
I waffle.
Yeah, well, look, I've done quite a bit of work with Ryan Tuckwood, so my answer is a little bit more polished. So, Kim, every day I'm fortunate enough to work with business owners, property investors and entrepreneurs that help them build profitable property portfolios by investing in co-living and special disability accommodation.
Beautiful. Love that. Do you just copy paste?
No, I literally just say we create really cool spaces for people to share together. So that's pretty much my...
Yeah. And I think, depending on who you ask, we both got different roles in the business, so Jo would answer it a little bit different to what I would.
Yeah, and that's why we did set up different brands, because the way that I come from it is more from the housemates, getting them in there and making it look and feel good, where he's more talks to the investor directly.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I'm going to assume that when you guys were little kids, you didn't be like, when I want to grow up, I want to, build investment properties and positive cash flow portfolios for investors. Like, how did this all come about? Where did it all start from?
Yeah, well, look, Jo's dad was actually a builder.
Yes. Yeah. We actually have moved, I think it was 14 times when I was younger, because he'd build somewhere, we'd move or we'd renovate. And so we were always doing that. And my mum loved the interior side of it. We actually were in the, what's it called? The interior, the good housekeeping. No.
The Good Home Show.
No.
It was a book, wasn't it?
It was a magazine. My mum's going to go mad for me forgetting. Yeah. Anyway, it's a really good interior design magazine in the UK, and we featured one of our properties in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's in your blood a little bit.
It's in my blood, yeah. But I can't believe I've forgotten what that's called. Yeah. It's my baby brain.
But on the other end of it, my dad was a butcher, so I had no access to property at all. Knew nothing about property until I became an electrician when I was 16, or did my apprenticeship when I was 16. Came out and finished my time when I was 20, and just became really good with my hands, as in good with tools, good with fixing things. So being an electrician, I was rewiring people's houses. Before that, before long, people started asking me to do little odd jobs for them. And then I started putting kitchens in for people, and on a weekend I was putting heating systems in with my stepdad. So I've just always been around the trade side of things and improving property for other people, but never knew how to commercialise it and make money from it.
And obviously I do detect a little bit of accent. Yeah, you're obviously from north of the river. So with that though, when did you come over to Australia? Were you were you really looking at property from that investor lens before you came out here, after you came out here? How did that all come about?
No. So we actually came at separate times. So me and Jo have been together for 19 years tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations, guys.
Today is the 17th of August. Tomorrow will be our 19th year anniversary of actually getting together as boyfriend and girlfriend.
Beautiful.
Been married 8 years.
8
years. But we actually split up for a short period of time, and that's when I came to Australia, and Jo went to London with a marketing background, took her down there. My trade background brought me to Australia. And before long, I got pulled into the oil and gas industry, the fly in, fly out game. And that was part of my goal anyway, because my stepdad, who got me my job as my apprentice electrician back in the UK, he always used to say to me, get a trade, son, travel the world, earn some good money. And as an electrician, working in Australia offshore was probably the best money you could earn in the game. So that was always my goal. And I remember getting to that goal one day, and I remember standing there first day on the platform, looking out into the horizon. You're just surrounded by water, blue sky hits the water. There's nothing else there. And I was like, this is everything I've dreamed of all my life. This was the goal that I set myself, and now I'm here. And I just didn't feel fulfilled whatsoever. Didn't feel fulfilled. And what I didn't realise at the time is that I'd been setting goals and working towards them. Now setting goals is like just a second nature that we do with everything that we do in our lives. But back then, I didn't realise I was setting goals and achieving them in the way that we do now.
And what was the difference there that you've noticed? Because obviously you can set a goal and, as you say, and achieving it, but not feeling fulfilled. And do you also, was it your goal, or was it a goal that was kind of impressed upon you that maybe it should be your goal?
Probably a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I've always been motivated by money as well. So to get into that position and earn that money was good. And the money was great, don't get me wrong. R&R was brilliant. We'd just party for 2 weeks straight. Travel the world. Before
he got me here. Reined him in.
We went on some good holidays. But it just got to that point. Jo actually moved over, and she was dropping me off at the airport one day. She started crying. And I was like, what are you crying for? And she's like, oh, were you going away for 2 weeks? And I was like, nah, it's fine. But then I sat on the plane, and I was thinking, shit, she's back there on her own for 2 weeks while I'm just out here doing what I do, because it's kind of second nature at the minute. Surely there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's when we started looking into property.
Yeah, it's interesting. And do you think, just random question, if you stayed in the UK, do you think you would have gotten as much of a pull towards property as being out here in Australia?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think, especially where we come from, and it's a smaller town, and, you know, we've just recently been back, and you do feel that you would just stick with, like, you know, it's the people you surround yourselves with. You do the same thing day in, day out, and you're just comfortable. And I don't think we'd have been on this direction as much. It was actually really nice and refreshing to come out, and it's all about starting fresh and doing new things. So I definitely think it had helped us. Yeah.
And I had Calvin on the podcast a few weeks back, and he speaks a lot about proximity is power. And before Jo moved over, I actually lived with one of my friends, David Lamb, and he had a property portfolio back in the UK. We were friends back in the UK, but not like best friends. We used to bump into each other on night out and stuff, and sometimes we'd end up back at parties together, but that was as close as the friendship got. When Dave moved out to Australia, I knew he had a portfolio, and I knew the money he was earning from offshore, he was sending it back and buying more properties back in the UK. And then one day he said to me, I'm going to this property seminar tonight, would you like to come with me? And that created the monster that we've got today, that first course.
Was it a good course? Because there's some very interesting property courses out there that people go to.
Yeah, well, I'd never been to a seminar before, so that was the first eye-opener. I couldn't believe there was so many people in one room wanting to learn about property. And I was probably at that stage in my life as well where I'd worked offshore, I'd hit that goal, and I was thinking, what next? You know, do I do engineering? Do I do the next step where I'm based in an office? Going to the seminar and seeing all these people there, and then the guy stood on stage and openly told everybody how he was making money from property, and I was just blown away. I was just like, holy shit, why there's no one teaching us this normally? So I went from that course, I went to another course, and then eventually
he went to a course about a course at one stage, and I was like, I was a bit on the non-course side of it. I was like, oh God, he's getting brainwashed. He's going into all these things, but it definitely paid off.
Well, at first you actually weren't as into it as you are now.
Yeah.
Back then you were kind of enjoying your job.
Yeah.
Wasn't too we didn't really want to get too involved until the pretty stuff came at the end, did you?
Yeah.
The furniture and the painting and stuff and making it look good, which she's incredible at. But yeah, that first course really opened up Pandora's box for me, and that actually not only got me into property, but got me into personal development as well.
Yeah. Nice. There's always a tipping point at some point in time. Yeah. And Jo, just like curious as well. So do you think that if Neil was being as like successful at the time and moving forward and progressing, would you have left your job to come in and do it, or like did the kind of the freedoms of having your own business and being able to impact people affect you at all to wanting you to go out there and, you know?
Well, I actually, because I used to work in advertising, and I always wanted one day to have my own agency, so I always aspired to have my own business. And when he was going to these courses, and it sounded really great what he was doing, and he said, look, we'll flip some properties. So I'm like, yeah, great, because I love, like, as you say, like, the decor, and I actually love just painting and just getting on me rags and just getting stuck into it, really.
Like dad builder, innit?
Yeah. So I enjoyed that side, but then he started going more into personal development and more down this all the different strategies. And I must admit, like, looking back now, I was very much like, oh, I feel like he's like changing, and if I don't step up, I will be left behind. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not going to be the person he's going to want to keep hanging around with if he's growing himself. Mm-hmm. So there was a bit of a turning point, a bit of a sticky thing in me, because I've always loved working in the creative industry and always said, I love my job. But looking back, like, you worked really hard for not that great amount of money. And it took me away from our relationship as well. A lot of the time I'd work on a weekend, on a night. So I'm like, I'm saying I love this job so much, but really, like, we could be doing more together. But I was definitely on that kind of back foot and always kind of questioning him a bit, like, oh, really? Do you really want to spend that much on a course? Where now, looking back, it was a very good idea, because it definitely paid off.
$5,000 at the time was a lot of money. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it is that you do have that kind of veil that's kind of pulled apart from you, because if you, as you say, and look, you probably you worked weekends and work long nights in your own business, but it's a different feeling when you are working for yourself versus if you're working for like for someone else. And then you go, you know, they always say, like, entrepreneurs are the crazy people that will give up working 40 hours a week for someone else to work 60 hours for themselves, with you know, more pressure and whatnot as well. So you got to be a little bit crazy to do it. But it is, when you see the other side of what is there, it's either you'd love it and want to go towards it, or it can kind of scare you away, which is why, you know, there's still people that obviously, you know, work jobs every single day, because it's not for everyone. Yeah. And so obviously you mentioned there, like, you went to some courses, did some personal development, and you had some growth coming through. How big an impact do you think having a support structure, mentorship and guidance is to achieving whether it be personal development or property portfolio development? How important do you find that?
Well, I personally think it's massive. I think nobody should try and endeavour on something that they've never done before without that knowledge, whether they just pay for the basics of the course so they understand the nuts and bolts, or whether they get one-on-one mentorship with someone that's experienced in it. We've probably spent over $200,000 now on courses and mentorship, and like, it's paid for itself 20 times over. You know, the lessons that you learn and the education that you get, it's, you know, I can't remember who said it, but someone said invest in yourself is the best investment you'll ever make, and I truly believe that, because once you've got that knowledge, you know, knowledge isn't everything, you need to execute, but if you've got the knowledge and you're doing the personal development to back up the execution side of things, I think that that equation, or that sort of magic together is where it happens. And one thing that we have been pretty good at is taking action on the education that we've gone through.
Yeah, I find it hugely powerful. And I think as well, as you're saying there, it's like, and a lot of the times it's not necessarily that you need to know what to do. It's, especially with property, I would think it's what not to do is the biggest ones, where someone's like, cool, here is how I lost, you know, $250,000. I'm not going to do that. You know, it just is it's so handy to have that in your back pocket, because it does, otherwise it just can, some people, you guys are smart people. You probably could have figured it out over time. But, you know, we probably wouldn't be sitting here in this room having this conversation. It might be 10 years down the road that kind of happened, because it takes you that extra time to get through with it.
Yeah. And some people might not have the resilience to bounce back from a bad deal. So they could go all in, lose money on that first deal, and then stop there. Well, we actually lost money on our third deal. So the first two deals were profitable. Our third deal we lost some money on. But the lessons that we learned doing that third deal, that was our first 5-unit development that we did, and the time killed that deal more than anything. But the lessons that we learned from that deal, I just put it down to a very expensive education program.
Yeah.
And like the lessons that we learned from that have made us plenty of money from there onwards, haven't they?
Yeah.
And what was the transition for you guys? Obviously, learning about property, doing some deals for yourselves, getting the flips going and things like that, into then wanting to have that as a as a career and a business? Like, what made you go like, actually, you know, we can do this and help some people with this?
Yeah, we actually didn't know we were going to do that, did we? It was just a really organic thing that happened. So we did flips to 2 properties. We had the development, but then we took out this the HMO strategy on the house that we built. So we built a house back in 2014, 2015. And this is when he was working away. So it was a 4-bed, 2-bath house with a big theatre room. There was only me there because he was working away all the time. So we decided to see if this market would be open to having like this professional kind of share house environment, because I worked in the city and I really wanted to like get closer to the city, because I thought when we were building, I was living in London and he said, look, Hammond Park, it's pretty close to the city. I was like, compared to for London, I was like, oh my God, that's like such a quick train journey. Nobody told you about the Kwinana freeway. So that hour on a morning where you just want to pull your hair out. So, you know, we wanted to get further to the city, but we looked at selling our property and we weren't going to get what we wanted for it or make anything from that or lose out, really. Rent it out to a family, we wouldn't be able to cover costs. So we started, like, it was literally just a thing. We said, look, it's another strategy we can try, let's just try it. So we created the property. We left most of the furniture in. The good stuff we put in the garage, actually, didn't we? We just said, we'll just leave it in the garage for now. See if it'll rent out, see what type of people we rent it to. We moved in with my mum in her apartment in South Perth. And literally, we couldn't believe the amount of people we were attracting and how quickly that the house got filled. So we just said, right, well, we could keep doing this. So we kept doing it for ourselves. And then it was only with you putting it on social media that people then came to us to say, well, can you maybe help us with it? So it was not even something we thought we would be going into a career. It was just a bit of a side hustle we were doing ourselves, wasn't it?
It was. And I think the other thing that we had in our favour when we did that is we were part of one of these education groups again. So generally the mentor or the coach of them groups will set up a Facebook page which is geared towards the strategy that they're teaching. And we did 3 properties, dropped them all into this Facebook page, and went from zero cash flow to $30,000 to $55,000 a year in cash flow within about 12 months. And then the guy who was running that education course tapped us on the shoulder and said, look, guys, I've been watching you for a while. I've seen all the work you've done. You've done 3 properties in Perth. Nobody else has done this. Would you be interested in joining the group as a coach and helping other people in Perth put these properties together? Because he knew that if he had us as a team in Perth that could help people execute, then he'd get more people to sign up for the course. So it was a win-win for both of us. So we were quite lucky to leverage the community that was in there as well. And we had a lot of people that would join in that group. And not just that group, but people were watching us on social media at the same time as well. The vacancy rate in Perth was 7.3%. There was vacant properties everywhere. And people were reaching out to us and saying, look, we've seen you convert these properties and fill them within 3 weeks. My property's been on the market for 7 months now. I've dropped the rent from $500 down to $380 a week, and I'm still getting no interest. Can you convert this and rent it out for us? And we did 2 of them, and that's basically how the business began. It was never a real goal to set up. The goal, first and foremost, was to replace our income so we didn't have to work. And on the way to that goal, the idea of the business was born, and here we are today.
It's a pretty good story and flow. And now, of course, I'm assuming there was like, as soon as you started that, there was no hurdles or problems the whole way. It was just smooth sailing, But like making that transition from like having something, obviously having demand in the marketplace, and then to growing it. What were some of the first kind of hurdles that came along the way for you guys? Because I know there's always hurdles, but like, what were some of the first things when, going from we're doing this for fun for ourselves to like, oh, we're doing this like professionally now?
I'd say it was the property management side.
Yeah. Because I think you really underestimate 5 or 6 individual people living in a property, thinking, because at first, the first 3 properties, I was just managing myself until we asked my mum to help us out. And I thought, I can totally do this while I'm working full time. But it was like, people ringing me saying, room 2 is not washing the pots. And I was like, what? You're a grown adult. Is this a thing? Definitely a lot of lessons learned in that property management side. I think it is the hardest side of the business because it's navigating people. And I think people are always the tricky part.
And there was no property management businesses out there that would manage the properties how we wanted them managing. So we approached the managers and said, we want you to manage this property, and we want everybody on their own individual lease with shared access to a common area. And they were like, nah. What we'll do is we put everybody on the same lease, and then everybody's joint responsible. And we were like, yeah, but then you're going to rent it out for the same price as the house next door. Am I trying to generate cash flow, but at the same time provide affordable accommodation? So that property management business was born out of frustration.
And it was born first, wasn't it, as well? So we set up the property management business before we did the kind of development renovation arm. And we asked my mum to come on board and just look after. It was more looking after our own properties at first. And then just because nobody else was doing it. So then it was the case of looking through the different agreements that we thought we'd have to be on to what we could, and getting lawyers involved and just trying and testing different stuff. Yeah, I think that definitely the property management has been the biggest hurdle. And I think it was the first time we'd worked together as a couple.
Created more hurdles.
Which, I remember years ago when I worked in agency world, and two of my friends, boy and girl, got hooked up together. I was like, I don't know how you can like work together and live together, and I could never do that. And then now it's the best thing. I wouldn't have it any other way, but it was certainly a challenge and something that we had to learn to navigate at the time.
Yeah, and working with your mother as well.
So it was family.
You can't talk smack about your co-workers then, can you?
Well, putting that dynamic into the same mix, working with your wife and then working with the mother-in-law, and the family dynamic that's in there as well, and in a business that was growing really fast, was challenging, absolutely challenging. So I definitely think the property management side of things was the biggest hurdle in the early days. Right now it runs really well. We've got some great team members in there. We've got a GM in place now. She's got some really good systems and processes in place.
But when we actually first started, we were because you're audited every year on your trust account, and we were doing everything manually, like a manual reconciliation of the trust account, and it was just me and my mom doing this
Excel
spreadsheet style. And I remember crying at 4:00 in the morning because the auditor was coming and we couldn't get one thing to reconcile, and me and my mum were just trying our best to find it. And now we found that there's actually software that does this for you, which is mad. It's all stuff that was just learning along the way. We didn't think it was going to be a big deal, but we definitely put a lot, and my mum definitely put a lot of blood, sweat and tears in there for us as well at the beginning.
Yeah, we definitely couldn't have got this far without Paula in the early days, and in the later days as well. Blood, sweat, tears, late nights, early mornings, you name it, she did it. So a lot of respect goes to Paula for the work she put in. It got to the point though where the property management business was established, and then people were starting to ask us more and more to help them. And the property management business was talking to tenancy side of things like affordable accommodation, but then to attract investors in, we had to start speaking about the returns we could generate for them. So that's how the HMO Property Co was born, because we needed two brands to speak to two different audiences. So the HMO Property Co was established to help people originally convert their existing properties. Then people started asking us if we could help them buy properties that had potential to be converted. So we set up the buyer's agency. Then we were buying properties and renovating them for people, and then putting a furniture pack in them, and then passing them on to the property management team. And then as the market tightened up in the established market, then people started asking us about new builds, and then we set up the new build arm, and now that's gone crazy at the minute. So right now the three different ways we work with people. We can either help them with HMO established properties that we convert, HMO new builds, or the disability accommodation, which are all new builds at the minute. And we're just you don't know this, but earlier on, the biggest SDA provider in Australia was in our office asking us to partner with her in the SDA space and be feet on the ground in Western Australia. So there's a lot of cool conversations happening at the minute, which has been this sort of accumulation of 8 years of hard work. And now, because we're established, because we've got the track record where people are starting to sit down and talk to us, which is super exciting and super cool at the same time. And so many really good things going on at the minute.
That's amazing.
So many.
And how do you manage that? Being you, as you mentioned, you obviously are a happily married couple. You have a beautiful young son, you've got 2 businesses that are extremely busy, and you've still got to make time for Neil and Joe the humans. Like, how do you guys manage all of that with everything going on?
Well, we have good mentors, don't we?
Yeah.
I think we started... He used to have a podcast, as you know, the... what's it called? Perth Entrepreneur Podcast. It was that long ago.
My number one fan there.
But you had Brett and Marie on talking because they had... they have... Well, Brett's done stuff in property, but they had the Relationship Warrior course. So he was chatting to them about it, and he said, look, is it worth us going? Because it'd be good to check it out. And obviously we felt like we were quite strong as a couple, but we know that there's always things that we needed to work on because we had to be so conscious about it, working and not taking work home. And I will add that our first office, outside of our home office, we shared an office, and it was an absolute nightmare. Like, if I wanted to go on a Zoom call, he'd be like, I was going on a Zoom call. Like, oh, you've got to be quiet. So it was really, really tough. So any tips, a tip for anyone out there is get your own separate offices. It definitely was a winner. But Brett and Marie at the Relationship Warrior Code, that kind of really opened my eyes up. It really took us through the best ways of communicating with each other, and about masculine and feminine energies and where to go to, you know, in the relevant moments. And I feel like that's been one of the strongest tools that we have. And they talk a lot about like having a date night and going through the things that are happening in your world and where you're prioritizing stuff. So we do carve out date night every Thursday is date night, and we just make sure we stick to that and communicate. I think the communication's been the main thing.
Yeah, and something else we learned as well from them is, you know, at the start of the year, plan your year out, but put your most important things in first. So it's like the rocks, pebbles, and sand method, isn't it? So put your rocks in first. Oh, I just lost the camera. Put your rocks in first, which is the relationship thing. So at the start of every year, we put in every date night that we're going to have, which is every Thursday night. Every quarter, we make sure that we're taking, you know, between 4 and 6 days away from work, and we try to do them as a digital detox. Not always, but we do try. We haven't done one since little Freddie's been born, because obviously we've been there looking after him, but we're going to get back on track with the 4 or 5 days away, and then that means we're just getting away from work. It's just me and Joe, and we can talk about the other things outside of work as well. And then we start putting in other stuff in the diary, but we make sure them things are in first. Holidays, breaks away, date nights, and then the rest can fill around that, you know what I mean? But as long as them things are in, scheduled in, do not remove. Evergreen. Yeah.
And I think now we've got really a strong enough team that we can start, you know, he can come home by 4:30 if he needs to, and then can do bath time, and we can go for like a walk, which is really nice, because before we had to just be in the business all the time, and there was no break from it. It was, you know, working really late at night in the office, and then up early on a morning. So it's nice. I feel like we've got a really good balance now with a really good team around us, that we don't have to always be here as well, which is good.
How long did it take you guys to get that team in place? Like, has that been an ever-growing journey and it's just kind of clicked recently, or?
Yeah, it's interesting, the team one. In the early days, what we found, looking back now, what we found is we were attracting a lot of younger people into the business who were inexperienced but essentially cheap labour. So we were setting up systems and processes for younger people to follow. But it got to the point where we needed more experienced people in the business. And I look around the office now at some of the people we've got in some of the seats, and I'm just blown away by the knowledge and the experience. And sometimes I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the business, which is probably a good thing, right? Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt, I've got confidence in every single person in every seat in the office there, that they're going to fulfill that role to the best of their ability. And it, like Joe says, it frees me up to be on for 4:30 on a night to bath little Freddie, who's turned into Big Freddie.
He's outgrowing that little bath that we've got him in. Yeah. But it has probably only been the last 18 months, really, that we've found that we've got a really good handle on the team and the people in it. I think every business owner will know that the team is actually the hardest part of a business. Like, I thought headaches would have come more from other places, but the team has been tricky, and because we take everything quite personally. Like, we want everything to feel like a family, and we want to support everyone, but not everyone, you know, has been able to stick out, say the property management side, because it is a tough gig. It is really hard. It is emotionally draining for the property managers because they are dealing with people on a daily basis. So we've had quite a bit of turnover, but I think now we've got a good strength. Like we've recruited on the basis of people being able to work with people and have that resilience, where before it was a case of get people with property management experience or who want to get into property management and we'll train them up. And we did it more on try to be on that skill set rather than the people communication type of skill set. So I think now we've got a really good a good team that can deal and have that resilience with the dramas that individual people living in a house brings. Yeah.
I think something else that kind of stood out, Kim, I'm going to give you a shout out, how are you, mate, because you've been a mentor of ours, sorry. We've been in the mastermind, and one of the first masterminds I came to of yours, you gave me the book Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. That was a game changer for us. I personally read that book back to front probably 3 or 4 times. We've since reached out to a scaling up coach called Jonathan Mond, who is coaching us with the cash flow side of the business, because as the business grows, money's coming in, going out, and we probably didn't have the best tracking system in place. So we engaged Jonathan Mond, who's, like I say, a scaling up coach, being incredible. The systems that we put in place then are now starting to break again because the business has grown again. So we've recently reached back out with Jonathan. But that all stemmed from coming to your mastermind, mate. And there's been heaps of good guests that you've had in that mastermind who have. Brad Sugars is another one. Followed him quite well. Love his content, man. He's an incredible speaker. Really, really good. Who else?
Oh, no, there's a lot on leadership and team stuff. There's been a lot we've got.
Every mastermind we've done with you, we've come back and we've implemented certain things from there as well. So thank you.
Oh no, well, thank you guys. You guys actually implement, so that's the good thing. It's you don't want to be someone who gets to go to, as you mentioned, all the events and the mentors and things you've had, and not apply it. It's such a waste when you can have that, and it's only small things. It's not like every time you learn something new, you've got to reinvent your whole business or shred. And if you add those things on, and you just keep building a strong base around you. So kudos to you guys for consistently applying everything that you've learned over the years. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, and like you said, that we go to these seminars now just looking for 1%ers, because we don't want to change too many things, because it's working at the minute. We're moving in the right direction. We've got a good target of 10,000 rooms by 2031. Everybody in the business knows where we're going. So now it's just these small little tweaks that we want to make just to improve efficiency. And if I sit in a conference for a full weekend and I get one thing out of it, then that's time well spent for me.
Yeah, 100%. And now, guys, is there any questions that I haven't asked you yet that I should?
No. Can you think of anything?
Well, I mean, we can probably talk a little bit about where the business is now and where it's heading. So, as we said earlier, there's a lot of exciting things going on right now. We've got a charity in the UK, which we're this close to signing an agreement with, and they're going to be investing significant funds into the HMO and SCA space. Can't say who the charity is or what the amount is right now, but it's going to be released on socials pretty soon. There's also another pension fund in the background again. We're trying to put that one together. They'll be investing significant funds into the HMO and SDA space. And if one of them funds comes off, we'll triple the business in the next 24 months.
Wow.
If they both come off, then we'll triple it again in the next 24 months. That's the type of funds we're talking about there as well. And that's very, very close to being signed. And I suppose, if anybody is listening to this and thinking, how do you get to that stage? If you go back to the start of the story, it all started with that first course and that first property and that first part of taking action. And another thing that happened last night, we had a Vietnamese investor fly in through a connection that we had. We took him out to see some of the properties that we're working on at the minute. It turns out this guy's one of the biggest furniture manufacturers in Vietnam. Incredibly wealthy, looking to plunk some money in Western Australia. We showed him a disability accommodation apartment complex that we were building, and essentially told us that he wants to fund the project there, and then he wants to get it signed up by Friday, and today's Thursday, so by tomorrow we should have that signed up, mate. So we've gone from renovating our own principal place of residence to building between 75 and 100 houses a year and building apartment complexes in the space of 10 years. Well, less than 10 years, probably 8 years.
Yeah, it's 2000.
So I think, yeah, like I say, I'm not really saying that to impress anybody. It's more to say you just don't know what's possible until you actually take action and move forward. And like, the goal was never to be doing what we're doing now, but I'm so grateful that we are doing it. And I'm so grateful that we've got the circle of friends around us that we have that lift you up and push you along. And, you know, people like you, people like Calvin, Ken, Kerry, like that group of friends we've got there alone. And then my business partner, Troy, just incredible person to have around the office and to be friends with as well. Been there, done that, got the T-shirts, the blood, sweat and tears again. So yeah, we're really excited, aren't we, about where this is going?
Absolutely, yeah. And so much opportunity for, just changing the housing landscape in WA. And, you know, we're bringing co-living up to the forefront like it is in Europe, and it's getting trendier over east, but there's not many people doing it here, or not many people knowing it's an option of way to live. And there's so many people that could benefit from this type of housing to free up then bigger properties for families that are currently, you know, sleeping in the cars and sleeping on the beach in tents because they can't rent a full property. So, you know, it's really exciting from a growth and financial aspect and everything else, but the impact that we can make has just been like, it drives us more and more each day, and drives the team, knowing that whatever we can deliver, we're helping people. Like, it's awesome. And I've been working on some partnerships with some vulnerable groups to try and get them longer term accommodation through this type of housing. And yeah, the response has been amazing. And I feel like, we can make such an impact. So 10,000 rooms by 2031, it seemed like a massive, massive goal. But if we keep kind of going on this growth trajectory that we are, then I think we're going to hit it.
And so everyone knows, just so we can earmark it, how many rooms are we at now? How many more to go?
So believe it or not, we're only at like just over 500 actually in the business, but we've got another 400 and something.
484 coming up.
Under construction right now. And then with the funds that are coming through from the other guys, then that will quite easily put another 1,200 to 1,500 in there quite easily. And then if the other fund comes in, we'll be at 3,000. So if we get to the 5-year point, the target for 5 years is to have 3,500 rooms, because we knew eventually we'd hit that kind of hockey stick curve. And I feel like we're just about to turn on that curve now. And it's like I said, it's exciting times, the impact that we're going to have, the housing that we're going to provide. It's quality accommodation for people that need it the most. You know, we're not providing mansions for people. Somebody else can do that. We're providing for the people that need it most. And when you see the people move into these houses, and you see the smiles on their faces that they've got a accommodation in an area that they wanted to live for a fraction of the price that they need to pay to rent a full house, it definitely helps you sleep at night.
Yeah, we've got housemates that's been with us from the beginning, and they keep coming back to us to say, right, I've moved jobs, I want to be in this area now, and they keep coming back and referring people to us. So I feel like the property management side of it has, been able to really grow and hold on to a good amount of residents that they know that we can support. Like, they'll go on to Flatmates, or they'll go on to Facebook to try and find other houses renting through a different landlord or someone who lives at the property. But they love the fact that they feel like they've got an equal part in the properties that we provide, rather than living with the landlord or not having professional management, because they then don't feel like anyone's got their back if anything happens in the house. So it's good. I think like the property management team, they go through a lot with the housemates emotionally, but they feel like quite rewarded by that at the same time.
We've also partnered with the Happiness Co as well. I'll let you tell them about the partnership with Girls and the Boys.
So we've got, in order to be able to support the housemates, because obviously there's a lot of people that have come into this housing that maybe didn't need it previously. So coming out of a marriage or breakdown, you know, they might have lost the job and they need something more affordable. Then not only has their housing changed, but sometimes their mindset, and sometimes they might need a bit more support. So we've partnered with the Happiness Co. They've got a platform that they're going to create for us. I know they do create it for other businesses, but they'll do a page on there as a landing page as housemate support for our property management business, so that we can give our housemates all access into a heap of content to be able to support them on anywhere that they are at in their journey. So if they're, from how do I reach out and make friends with somebody I don't know in the house to, I'm drinking too much, or, lots of different kind of range of content to help support them as well. Because we believe that if they've got a good mindset, they're happy internally, they're going to be happy in the house is going to be harmonious, they'll stay longer. It's a recipe.
Everybody wins.
Everyone wins.
Everybody wins.
Amazing. I love that.
And there's one, I suppose like the last thing we'll probably discuss or talk about is the foundation that we're looking at setting up as well.
Yes.
Which is early doors, but
it is.
It's on the
That's
radar.
why I wasn't going to talk about. But so we are looking at creating a charity or a foundation so that we'll be able to offset, if investors want to actually support people and maybe subsidise rent or be able to give up rooms in their properties to help vulnerable people, then we've got an arm to do that.
Well, we will soon.
Oh, yeah, we will soon.
Yeah, so it's essentially, some people do reach out to us that unfortunately we can't help. So we want to have a pot of money there through, philanthropy that can help people get access to housing that, are unfortunate that they don't have a job at the minute. Because a lot of people get stuck in a cycle when they don't have fixed abode or they don't have an address. They can't apply for a job because they can't put an address down for the job. So they get stuck in this cycle of, unfortunately, being homeless. And like homeless looks totally different for a lot of different people. A lot of people's perception is like the drug addict in the CBD that's sat there wrecked and smashing cans all day. But the reality is there's people sleeping on sofas, there's people sleeping in cars, there's people sleeping in tents. There's, the over 55-year-old single female is the biggest growing demographic of homelessness in the country. And, this is supposed to be the lucky country, isn't it? So we really want to get that foundation humming as well so that we can give people access to housing. There's the option where somebody could, let's say we've got 3 people with good incomes in that property that pay the full room rate. And then we've got 3 people in that house that have a subsidised room rate. And instead of the property being positive cash flow, we make it neutral cash flow, and the positive offsets the negative for them people so that they get access to housing as well. So there's lots of ways that we're trying to help and get people into housing. It's difficult. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy, especially when it comes to government organisations and stuff like that as well, and Residential Tenancy Act and everything else that goes on out there. But we're trying our best, and when it comes back to fulfilment, and I was standing on that platform feeling totally unfulfilled. Like every day I walk into this office just with the driving me to keep going and to keep delivering the accommodation. When we see these finished properties furnished, and the team are setting them up now without us, which is incredible because we've got the systems in place for them to do it themselves, and it's just warms my heart, mate, when I walk in them houses and see them finished, set up perfectly, and then hear that they're renting out within a week of bringing it to the market as well. It's insane.
Yeah, that's amazing. So anyone listening to this, make sure you share this episode, get it out there to more people, whether it's someone who maybe is looking for a co-living space or someone who maybe wants to see how can I invest and help more people as well, or maybe just a fellow business owner who wants to hear about the trials and tribulations. Get this episode out and share it around as much as you can. And guys, I appreciate you letting me come and join you on your podcast and steal the hosting spotlight for a day. Has been absolutely amazing.
Kim,
Thanks,
it's an absolute pleasure, mate. And if there is any small business owners listening to this and you need help growing your business, reach out to Kim and the team at Your Social Voice, mate, because mate, a lot of this success that we've had along this way has been because of you and your team. So thank you, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Kim.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.